and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to discuss all things estate agency. My name is David Warburton, and once again, I'm joined by Ian Storey and James Kendall. Lads, how are we doing, and how has your week been? Let's go to you this week, JK.
James Kendall, not James Kendo, as it does say on the automated things when you look on Spotify. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I sometimes, because you listen to the podcast back sometimes to see if there's any like mistakes that you made. I'm that sad person that listens back to, and I sometimes listen back and I think, why would anyone listen to this? But clearly some people do. And every week it says James Kendo, and I'm like, there's probably someone in Japan somewhere going, "Oh, that's amazing," with a French accent. Anyway, how has my week been? Well, I'm pleased to report that it's been a lot more positive recently. Still putting plenty on. We've got 2 confirmed sales in the last 7 days. We're just working another 3 offers in place. So, you know, we could be sitting on 5 by the end of the day. Average fee of about 12 grand. So September midway, we're looking pretty good. We've got obviously MPC meeting happen a week today. And there has been some, I mean, we won't go too deep into it because we're talking about the week, but there has been some interesting developments with the NPC. I'm not sure whether you guys know this, but there was one of the members of the NPC has been replaced. So Jonathan Haskell has been replaced. And when the base rate was 5% and went to 5.25, he'd voted 5 times in a row to increase to 5.5%, and has not voted to reduce it since. So new member Alan Taylor has replaced him. But what will be interesting is that obviously the narrative for the NPC seems to be that they need to bring interest rates down. And I think having interest rates, and I'll credit Gatesy for this because it was Gatesy that sent it to me last night on text, who told me this information, because we were just having a chat about the market and you know how things are going, etc. And I thought it was really interesting. I think the narrative seems to be with the MPC and the Bank of England that interest rates do need to come down. And I think as once that initial base rate drop happened earlier in August, the market sentiment's been a lot better. Obviously, lenders have reduced their rates. Certainly some good 5-year fixed around for people in the long term. And it's just brought a lot of activity back into the market. You know, I'm looking at, while I'm talking to you now, our diary, today is absolutely stacked. You know, we've got a couple of take-ons today. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 viewings happening on a Thursday. Now, given the amount of homes we've got on the market at one time, that's pretty good. Rich has got quite a few in over the next few days. And it's just, there's definitely the activity there. If you look back to where we were in August, and it seemed to be like 2 or 3 pods in a row, we did July, August time, where all I was doing each week was coming to the podcast saying nothing's happened this week and we've lost three out the pipeline. So I think, as I said before, you know, when you're going through tough times, you just got to keep going, you know, keep sending your letters, keep doing the things, keep having the conversations with people. And one thing that's been really key and really crucial, because one thing we don't talk about each week on the pod, we talk about sales when we ask how our week's been. We talk about sales that are going through, and we talk about sales that have fallen maybe, and maybe things that we've taken on. One thing I don't think we talk enough about is price realignments. And price realignments have been key for us in the last 3 weeks in getting some sales across the line. 2 of the ones that we've agreed this week at 800 have both been as a result of, you know, client updates and getting those price realignments. And some of the conversations we're having with people are almost to the point where you get to the point where you're almost going to lose people in some way, where you have to say, look, you know, I mean, Rich had a really good conversation with one of his clients last night, and they were saying, look, you know, it's not happening. You know, what do we do next? And Rich has kind of said to them, look, we've talked about price before. And they said, well, look, we're not selling it for any less than 800. And he said, well, you're not going to move it. But the reality is you need to change the price. They were talking about reducing it by 10 grand. Waste of time. that we need to reduce it by 50.
Yeah.
So he held strong, and they said, look, realistically, we can't let it go for any less than 770. So we come down now. But now at a new price, it's much more saleable. And then before you know it, it's going to be a sale in the bag next week. How about you, David? Let's go to you next.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's a privilege. Yeah, not bad. Thank you. Not bad at all. Once again, a week without a faller. So we are on a roll. We're on a roll. Instructions are great. Got quite a lot coming on, but the fees are just fantastic. I was saying to you before I came on, the results that I get, I've had from my letters all year have been phenomenal. The latest one I've booked about, I think we booked about 20 valuation, and the fees that are the potential fees from that are huge. I mean, just to give you an example, I listed a house last week. This week. It went live this week at 2.5 million, and the fee on that is 37,500. On the same road, I've got one coming on. I've done all the photography and everything. I've released a couple of reels. That's a £25,000 fee. And then there's somebody on the market on that road who knows one of my vendors, and he contacted my vendor to say, do you think he'd go as low as mine? And his house is on the market at 1.3 million, which I thought was quite nice, because he just perceives us to be only selling the top stuff, which obviously is not true. So it's been a really good week in respect of that, and I've got I think I've got 6 or 7 at the moment now in photography. We had 15. We've managed to get a few back. Some great vals booked, some really nice sales agreed. Some exchanges are finally coming through. We had a bit of they've actually started steadily coming through, but this month in particular is probably going to be a bumper month. So overall, yeah, it's been it's very, very positive, and we've got lots going on. I'm going to need a holiday, I think, in the next couple of months. What about you?
You take one, aren't you? It's only doing 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, I was hoping to take one in December, and then we announced the mastermind. We think we're going to be doing the mastermind. Spoiler alert! In December. So I'm going to have to, rethink my dates.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to try. Yeah, I'm going to try and take at least 10 nights. I think somewhere. Get a bit of winter.
Do that though. You need to do that.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will be doing.
I've just come back from Copenhagen, and I can't understate how much it was nice to have a breakaway for 3 days.
Yeah,
and just get away from work. I came back to 400 emails, but and a load of WhatsApps. But it was just nice to switch off for 4 days, not think about work, and then when you actually come back, you actually want to really throw yourself into it. Whereas I was quite wilted before I left.
Well, I actually spoke to a guy on the phone the other day. He rang up and inquired about our property that I've just mentioned there, the one at 2.5 million. He's obviously a very successful guy. He's got a house himself, and he doesn't need to sell that to buy this one for cash. So you can tell the type of person you're dealing with. Really nice bloke. And he said, sorry, I tried to call him on Friday, and it was just after hours when I tried to call him, and he didn't answer, so I'd left him a voicemail. And he rang me back on Tuesday, I think, eventually. And he said, "Hi, David, thanks for your message. I'm sorry I didn't come back to you sooner. I always switch my phone off on a Friday for family time." And I just said, my instinct was just to say, "Oh, I could do with a bit of that. I really do admire that." And he then went into a bit of a passionate plea with me to say, "No, you really do need that." He said, I sound a bit older than you, and I've probably been where you are, and you can spend so much time at work on your phone, taking it everywhere you go. And I promise you, although you feel right now it's doing you a world of good, you'll not get this time back and stuff like that. So I just thought it was quite nice to hear from him, and he was actually concerned for me as well. Thanks, lads. So he was good. But yeah, there you go. Turn your phone off on a Friday.
Cool story.
Ian, how's your week been?
Ian, how's your week been?
No, that was a great story, Dave. That was a great story.
It was amazing. I didn't shed a tear.
I've got loads of them.
Thanks. No,
I've not shed a tear since your origin story, JK. Where you started had a really bad school life.
It was all a dream.
Yeah.
Oh, before we came on air, JK was doing Keir Starmer impressions and impressions from Phone Jacker. But maybe we'll spare that for another podcast. Our week has been good, very good, really. We've feels like there's been a bit of an uptick. It might just be that we're going through a sweet spot and it might all fall apart again next week. But we have, in the last week, agreed sales on 8 properties so far. Average of 850,000, average fee of 17,000. So that's good. All the gold. Only 2 of those over £1 million. I say only. I don't want to sound like I'm boasting, but sometimes people think at Stories we only sell really highly priced homes, but there's a few there, 365, 695, 550. There's a good spread, the gold, as we always refer to. Only 1 listing since the last podcast, but it's a very good listing in a very good, desirable village. Directly offer not on the market letter. So he's been getting our letters. He's also seen our boards. I said to him yesterday, I always say who recommended us, even though I know it's not always a recommendation. And he said, oh, well, I've been getting letters, but also you definitely seem to have more boards than the other agents do. So boards is absolutely key. That's a 1.5 at 2%. Cracking property in a good village. And then we've launched 4 new ones yesterday. 650, 800, 1.65 and 775. Average price of 968,000. So, all good, really. We had one that Michelle has managed to save, which is a chain of 3. And basically, we've managed to get the buyer at the bottom, to go against the advice of their solicitor, which has taken a lot of cajoling and persuading. But they've realised that basically it didn't have building reg sign-offs when it was converted from an old house 25 years ago. So it's now past enforcement, and other sales have happened in the building since then, and they've all gone through. And a few other issues, and they've sort of seen sense, and they are now going ahead, and they are the bottom of a chain of 3 that we're selling all 3.
Nice.
So managed to save that one. It now can't exchange contracts this week, though, because that solicitor at the bottom has gone away for 4 days. So that can't happen until next week, which is brilliant. You almost wonder if he's done it on purpose. And then we've got another one with a chain of 3, where the top one has fallen through. We're selling all 3. The top one has fallen through this week. But I think just as of today, I've managed to find another property for those buyers, chain free, that we're also selling. So I think I've reconnected that. So that should also carry on. So really good, positive situation at the minute for us, chaps. Although, we don't know what's around the corner.
So you remember the complete agent? Indeed. Talk me through what sort of value you're getting from being a member of the complete agent.
So I love estate agency, and I love everything to do with learning and training when it comes to estate agency. There are so many courses out there that you can buy and you can be a part of, and trust me, I've tried a lot of them. But this is a sign for whoever's watching this to come and be a member of the complete agent. It has solely been responsible for our integration and growth over the last 6 months as a business. We've already got huge amounts of value out of the group. All of the content that we get, we've put to good use, but sort of next to that, it's being part of the group and talking to other professionals on a daily and weekly basis. It's been fantastic.
So this week I thought we'd talk about some of the things that came up in our monthly Zoom, and some of the a mix of that actually, and a mix of some of the messages that I've had this week from people interested in becoming part of TCA. And one of the first things that I think we could probably talk about is one agent in particular said to me that they can't charge higher fees and they can't charge upfront fees because all of the agents in the area that they're in are all charging less than 1%. What have you got to say about that, gents?
Well, gosh, where do we begin? Well, when we started Stories, which was 5 years ago, we were completely unknown. I'd only lived in the area for 2 years. My only connections were through my wife, through Alex and her friends and family. But I was completely unknown. We did the first 5 listings at 1%, and then we've charged 2% ever since. And everyone around us is 1% or less. And they're all far more established than I am. There hasn't actually been a new agent start in either of the 2 towns where we have an office since we started. There's others around that sort of get in a bit, but we are by far the newest agent, and we by far get the best fees. So what your competitors are doing is irrelevant.
But the thing is, so just to double down on that, so I've got my own opinion on this as well. You can't. If you think you can't, you're right. But also, the other thing to bear in mind is that if you're not good enough, you can't either. You can't just charge 2% or 1.5%. Can you grab that for us? You can't just go, well, I'm going to charge. Well, I mean, you can just go, I'm going to charge 1.5%, 2%, but it's not going to work very well for you. But you actually have to be worth it. And I think a lot comes down to, and we talk about it a lot, how do you look? You know, how's your pitch? What are you offering a potential client? Because if all of you're offering is the same as everyone else, then, you know, why would they pay any more? They will laugh in your face because what are you actually delivering? Whereas, you know, our pitch or our offering, I would say, is, you know, you come and see people is that, you know, there's a brochure or 2-3 brochures on the table. We're articulating the story of the results that we've got for these particular people. We're demonstrating the marketing that we're offering people. You know, and when you put it side by side, people have seen a video, you know, they've seen the quality of the marketing that you're offering, and you've demonstrated tangible results for, you know, mid to higher end homes. You know, people expect to pay more. It's like anything, you know, you sit in a more expensive car, you expect to pay more for it because it feels expensive, and the marketing around it gives you the perception that it's going to be much more money, you know. And it's, I suppose, going back to what you said last week, Dave, you know, the analogy you use with the tin of beans, you know, we're giving people advice on the asking prices to set for their home and being able to articulate what that means and how, you know, even as far as your pitch in terms of coming to the valuation, you know, how are you presenting the value of the property to people? Are you going in there with a best price guide and saying, oh, well, you know, the house down the road sold for this, so I think that you should probably put it on for this? Or what most agents say, what do you want to put it on for? Was what it feels like they say in my area. What do you want to put it on for? And I think I said this the other week. They did the thing where they put 3 prices on a bit of paper, and they said, you know, what was like $750, $8 or $850, and it was the whole classic. Well, you know, if you're not in a rush, we could try $850, depending on, you know, how much of a rush, maybe the middle $800, or, you know, if you want to get it sold quicker, $750. And I remember saying to seller, I don't know, maybe I haven't said this yet. This happened this week. And in a rising market, that strategy might work. I mean, it's a poor strategy because literally all they're doing is fishing for what the seller wants to sell the house for. But the data is the data, and the data doesn't lie. You know, the data is not an opinion. If you get 4 agents around your house, 4 agents will give you their opinion, and it all boils down to your offering. If your offering is the same as everyone else's, then yeah, you have you're competing on price, and it's as simple as that.
The thing is, when it comes to this as well, if your offering is the same, you're quite right. But I think how you articulate this is so important. I touched on a point, I think, last week or the week before about practicing certain things, saying certain things, and being able to do it properly. Like, imagine you go in doing a presentation to a room of people, 200 people in a room, and somebody's asked you to do a PowerPoint presentation on something. You know, you're not just going to walk onto the stage and just start talking, are you? You're going to do quite a lot of preparation. And I think with evaluation, it's similar. You know, we've obviously got the benefit of, you know, years and years of experience now, probably 20 years of experience. And we've all done horrendous valuations where you come out of them and think, I wish I'd said that, or I would have done this differently, and this, that, and the other. So you kind of build up knowledge and experience of different circumstances. But I always remember, like, training when I was younger, and you'd have a file that you'd take out and you'd present the file with different photographs in it and things like that. And it'd kind of give you a step-by-step guide of what you were talking about. But ultimately, I think you've got to know what you're talking about, and the way you articulate that is going to be very, very important. As important as the way your brand looks and the way your photographs and everything look. Yeah. Because if you can't get across pricing with a level of confidence and you can't articulate it well, then they aren't going to trust you as much. And I think that is worth a lot. So I did a valuation yesterday on a lower end property, or maybe mid-range property. If I take this on, we will be the fourth agent to have it. She had 3 different agents on it, and the price that she started at was £550,000. The price that I'm going to hopefully get it at, and she desperately wants to use us. It's a case of which brand, actually. We ended up having a chat about that. But when it does come on, the number for us is 450. Now, that is a ridiculous drop from the original number that it was on at. But I was able to articulate that the house never has been worth 550,000. So yes, your marketing has been average at best over the last couple of years that you've been trying to sell your house. But in truth, one of those agents would have sold your property with their marketing had you been on at the correct number from day one. And I was able, because I had all the data, as you know, lads, we go back to either A, when they bought the property, if it's relevant, or B, the last sort of 4 years at the moment, because I think it's really important that you demonstrate how COVID has affected the market and how people were behaving throughout COVID and how it's affected now. So we showed her that. So I was able to show her what her valuation was 2 years ago, when she had all the agents out in the first place and we weren't one of them. And then I was able to say, this is what it's worth now. And again, has anybody told you that the market's dropped in your area 11% in the 2 years that you've been on the market? No, they haven't. Right. The annoying thing for you is that the price in the first place should have been probably around 475, 480. It's probably 450 at the moment. That's the reality. So you might be able to get between 450 and 475. You're on the market at 480. It's a terrible pricing point anyway. There's no filter for it on Rightmove. Just a slight drop on £5,000 on your asking price, and that's all it is. It's just an asking price. It'll give you a much better chance of success because you're capturing a wider audience. But ultimately, the market suggests that that's what it's worth. You don't have to agree with it. That's the subjective part, as we always say. But that's where it sits. And my fee is double that of the other agents, and I'm going to be putting my house on the market at £100,000 less than what she started at. And that's because, yes, the brand, I think our brand is excellent. She loves it. And she values what we do in terms of the photographs and the videos, our presentation. But more than that, I think that she sat there in the valuation and respected what I'd presented to her. Good. That it wasn't me telling her what I think her house is worth. And God, we talk about valuation all the time, but it is so important. If you get 3 estate agents, use this line again, practice. Use this line. If you get 3 or 4 different estate agents out to value your home, you will get 3 or 4 different opinions, and they are all irrelevant because they are not buying your home. It's almost irrelevant what you think it's worth, Mr. Vendor, because you're not buying your home. It's only worth as much as someone is prepared to pay. The data suggests that this is what it's worth. We now need to put together a knockout marketing campaign to the type of buyer that we think will buy your home, and it will find its value. And once we get somebody on the hook, you need a really good, experienced estate agent to negotiate your biggest tax-free asset and get you to the final, get you over that final hurdle and over the finish line. And again, that part of it can cost you thousands, because if you've got a junior, inexperienced member of staff that is a bit of an order taker, just taking offers and passing information, then they're not actually negotiating, and that could potentially cost you thousands right at the death. So I guess overall, goes back to that mini-series, check how you look, make sure you're consistent, but ultimately, you've got to have authority in the house at the meeting to command higher fees. You've got to demonstrate your worth.
Where was that?
And like I say, if you that analogy, imagine that you're going doing a presentation in front of 200 people. You're extremely nervous. You don't know how it's going to go. Most people are nervous in that scenario, and you're not going to walk onto that stage unprepared, are you? And I think you need to do the same for the evaluations. I'm not saying stand in the mirror for every evaluation. That's not necessary, obviously. But what I'm saying is there are things that you can say and you can practice regularly. Because I'm saying the same things on a lot of evaluations. Very, very similar way each time. Different things will come up, but more often than not, it's the same things that you need to get across and things that you need to articulate. And the more you say these things, the more natural it becomes, and the more confident you will become as well. So practice, and if you're relatively new to a different style of valuing, particularly like our clients, JK, a lot of them weren't valuing in the way that we've taught them.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes and you're going to get caught out, and that's okay. Just come away, learn from it, and next time do it again. But make sure you're well prepared, make sure you understand the market in your area, and then articulate it. And don't worry about them not necessarily agreeing with what you say. It's how you then get that across.
One of the other things that came up as well is like valuing houses without buildings and land. And the data says that the house is worth 750 grand, but it's currently on the market with another agent at 1.4. So how does that work? And it's like, well, the data is the data for the house, but you need to look at the whole picture. What is the land? What can the land be used for? What value add? I mean, it may well be that 1.4 is way too high, but the data, I've sold quite a few houses, like Equestrian homes are a good example of this, where I've sold them, and I've sold them for quite a bit more than other agents had valued before. And also equally, I've come in as a second or third agent where, an equestrian agent, or, in inverted commas, an equestrian agent has valued and marketed the property and not sold it. And I said to the clients, because they said, we didn't come to you because we weren't sure whether, you're an equestrian agent. And I said to the client, I was like, in the nicest possible way, just because I don't know how to put a horseshoe on a horse doesn't mean that I don't know how to sell a house. I know how to market and negotiate. And what we need to do is sell the story of your home to that niche in the market that wants to buy an equestrian home. And, the other things that have been overlooked by the previous agent or agents in both scenarios is what is the potential of the outbuildings on site? If they're agricultural buildings, is there potential to get a Class Q? And one of the things that I think has been really valuable for me, and it's come back both ways, is working with a really good planning consultant locally. So when I go to value a house, I'll sit down and say, right, okay, in this scenario in particular, have you investigated the potential of your land? Have you investigated the potential of your outbuildings? What research have you done into this? And most people say, well, I haven't done any. I'm just selling an equestrian home. And I remember I sold one recently, and the far paddock, there was 2 acres and two fields adjacent. They just got planning permission to build 18 houses. And all of the other agents had overlooked it and not even mentioned it. So I got a planning consultant I work with locally to before I'd even got a contract signed. I said, look, before we do anything further, let's get this guy round. Let's see what the potential is, and then we can talk about what the strategy is moving forward. Anyway, long story short, he went out and said, look, the majority of the house and the grounds, there's no real potential. Possible potential for the stables, but a bit more difficult because the structure's not significant enough. However, the far paddock, I would say in the next 10 to 15 years, you'd probably get planning permission for 10 to 15 houses. So what I then went back in and said to the sellers is, look, we need to protect ourselves here. So, I don't think there's any huge value in it immediately now because they wanted to move to the Peak District. But I said, what we need to do is protect you and instruct a solicitor when we sell the house and let any potential buyers know that we're going to put a covenant on the land. And what we did is we got a 25-year covenant on the far paddock, so that if a spade goes in the ground in the next 25 years, they will benefit from the uplift in the value of the property, which I think we agreed was about 25%.
JK, brilliant. And that's something anybody can do. Make contacts in the local planning department, or I have a really good builder that we've sold quite a few houses for, and he's someone that I can occasionally take to properties like that as well, to get an honest opinion. He might be in a position to actually go ahead and buy something off them, but he's really good at giving great advice as well. So a nice contact to have. So, again, that would go a long way. I mean, the knowledge that you just shared there actually was really refreshing to hear. I can't imagine that many, if any, of your competitors can go that far.
But it works both ways, though. With that planning consultant, and I work with a couple. So I work with two. I work with a planning consultant, and I work with someone that just does land promotion. And anyone that so the actual planning consultant I work with, if I think it's more long term, I'll speak to him. It's a good value add ahead of Steam, but also he gets clients walk off the street to him that's saying, I want to build or I want to develop or want to do this. And then he then puts me forward. We don't have any commission arrangement in place. It's very much you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But from my point of view, it's a great value add to any potential client because the other three agents are coming out and going, I think it's worth this. I think it's worth that. We put it on Rightmove and we'll do a crap video. Whereas I really researched the whole plot. And as a result of, and that's just one example, those people then have recommended me to like 4 or 5 other people. And they just said, look, this is the story. This is what happened. This is what he did. And because I said to them, do you want to sell your house for £1 million and then drive past in 5-10 years time and see there's a housing development of X amount of houses there that should have gone for 3-4 million on your land because you didn't explore the potential of it for a 10-minute conversation?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, absolutely. I get it. So, if you're listening to this, get yourself time. These are all the kind of things we help within TCA and help our existing members with. Like I say, we give all of this away for free on the podcast. But what we do is we sell the implementation. And these are all things that come up at the mastermind, which we've got next week, where people ask these sort of questions. And yes, we'll tell you how to do it on the podcast, but actually in person, we will show you how to do it. So I just thought that was one of the questions that came up. I just thought it was quite a good value add share. The other thing I would just say, if you've got anyone that is local to you that is a land promoter, there's one chap I know close to me. I've got a really good relationship with. He actually builds houses himself as well. Not literally himself, but he's got a couple of building companies where he buys and sells new builds. And they're sort of, I suppose, an SME size builder that do 20, 30 at a time. But he's also a land promoter and he puts me in front of people. But the benefit of him is that anyone that's got serious potential for land for like 20, 30, 40, 50 units, the benefit of having him, he's a great planner. He knows the planning laws inside out. It's what he's done for the last 25 years. But if you put him in bed with the person that's got the land, the benefit to the person selling the land is that he takes a percentage of the uplift. So he's not trying to do do anyone over or sell anything cheap. He fronts all of the cost of getting the planning and does all of the work, but just takes a percentage of the uplift in the value. So if he gets 2 million rather than 1 million, then he does well out of it. And it's a really easy sell to people. But also equally, there's a lot of builders out there with huge land banks that also use him for advice. And he's able to then put me forward. I've got a really good relationship with him where he now knows he's used me to sell his own homes, where he then puts me forward. So, there's a couple of little things in there for people about value adds for selling and et cetera. But also there's, building relationships with the right sort of people can pay dividends for you in the long run.
And I think as well, JK, on stuff like that, I know it's been a question that's been put to us a few times in how do you value land, how do you value outbuildings, etc. And there's no exact number to it, and I hate to say it again, it's a very, very subjective thing, because I've had a really good one that's a classic example of it recently. So a couple of months ago, I launched 2 properties in the same week. One was 1.35 million and one was 1.3 million. And the one at 1.3 is the big white house I've got in Holcombe Brook, which is an unbelievable finish, extremely high-end finish. And we did a full house stage on it. It's empty. Developers have done it. Incredible video, etc. And it's got a big garden, but it's actually on a main road, and there's no electric gates on it at the moment. It's got a bit of, there is a bit of a sense that it's overlooked to one side a little bit, but it's 1.3 million. The other one at 1.35 million is an old sort of farmhouse that's been converted. It is a really beautiful home, but it probably needs some updating. But both houses are around 3,000 square feet, 3,200 square feet. But the one at 1.35 million has lovely manicured gardens. It's got 8.5 acres of land, including stables, menage, all that sort of stuff. They both went up and had contrasting feedback. So the overwhelming majority were saying, "Oh, both houses and opportunities are fantastic, beautiful." But certainly on my personal feed, when people are following what you do, quite a lot of people were saying, "How can that one be 1.3 and that one only be 1.35 when it's got 8.5 acres?" Now, the one at 1.3, that's the beautiful all done up house with the smaller garden, is slightly overlooked and is on a main road, is now under offer, very, very close to asking price. We have just reduced the other one to 1.25. It's not yet sold. It's had quite a bit of interest, but it's not yet sold. And the answer to the question is because it is a subjective thing. Lots of people do not want the headache of 8.5 acres of agricultural land. So even though it seems a better deal because you're getting all that land and stunning views, to a lot of people that is a headache. However, to somebody who keeps horses, it is an absolute dream. That pool is smaller than perhaps somebody who wants a really, really high-end executive home that's close to the centre of Ramsbottom, where they can walk, go and have a lovely meal and a night out. It's close to the train station, etc., etc. So it's basically two different buyers, two different pools of buyers. And actually, even though one of the houses there seems like a no-brainer, well, I'm getting the same sort of size of house, and I'm getting all that land with it. It's an absolute no-brainer. To a lot of people, that's a headache. So the point I'm making there is it's very difficult to say that is what it's worth. It comes back to that tin of beans analogy I used last week. It doesn't have a price tag. A negotiation is going to take place. And it's difficult to place a value that on something where somebody might have a completely different opinion. It's like standard things like decor. If you go into a house, you and I might have completely different tastes. You might walk into one house and say, "Oh my God, it's immaculate, I wouldn't change anything." I might walk in and say, "I'll change everything." So again, how are you articulating that? You've got to get these points across, because if like I say, if these light bulb moments that we talk about all the time, if they have them, you've got the client. Then basically you can guide them and make them understand that ultimately this process is going to boil down to one thing: what someone is prepared to pay for it, and how we get people through the door using our marketing techniques, and then ultimately how we negotiate the best price for your biggest tax-free asset. And I understand, like, there's when we've done valuations and helped people before, there can be quite big discrepancies. Like you might do your pound per square foot. This one I'm talking about, to be honest with you, the one with all the land, we had a phone call together this week, and she said, we've had somebody who's interested in buying just the land at £300,000 from us, like basically all the acreage. But do you then think we'll still get 900 for the house? And the honest answer is I'm not 100% sure. Pound per square foot, it works, but you're now taking away, it's probably one of its biggest assets. So it's a difficult conversation, because the truth is the house does need a bit of work. We might be talking more £800,000, £850,000. But again, there's no point saying, yeah, of course we will. Of course we'll do it. You've got to be honest with the client and then go through the data as it shows and explain that it is a very subjective thing. And ultimately it's about how do we market it to that target audience.
So another question that came up, Dave, and how do we get more sales? And I think that aligns nicely with what you've just said about price realignments, and we talked about it earlier. Let me ask you a question here then. So you articulated this quite well on the meeting this week. How do you go about getting a new price? And how do you sell it to the client, and what does that look like?
Well, one of the things that I've started saying, which is something that I've learned from you, JK, is to ask the seller if they were offered a certain amount of money, what would they say to me? So I think the specific example I gave on the members Zoom the other day was about a property that was actually just launched, and I said to the seller, but it would work the other way around with price realignments. So I actually didn't mention before at the start of the pod, but we've actually realigned 3 prices this week. One of them from 475 to 425. So the seller was saying to me, look, what can we do? We need to achieve a sale. And I was saying, the last thing you want to do is regular price reductions. We see lots of agents doing that, and it's very damaging because as soon as you do it, everyone that's registered with Rightmove gets an email to say it's been reduced, and it just makes it harder to get the best possible price. So I say to a seller, so John, if I came to you with an offer, for example, on this property, if I came to you with an offer of 435, what would you say to me? And he said, well, probably not quite there, but I'd sort of have to consider it. So I said, well, if that's the situation, then what we should do is reduce it to offers of a 425, because we need to generate those conversations. We need to generate those offers from buyers. And if you can put it back on them and say to them, what would you do if I came to you with an offer of this? It makes them sort of project forward, doesn't it, as to what would happen if they received that offer. And that really helps to get it in their minds. And another thing that's happened this week with a price change was we've got a property that was on at 1.75 and it's got a 2.5 acre paddock behind it. And I've said to the seller, what I think we should do is change the price to 1.65, but take the land out of it. And then Rightmove will let us put it back on as a new price, as a new listing, instead of a reduction. So we're still going to sell the overall package, but we've just marketed it differently. And of course, by doing that, it's gone back on. And actually, we've now got 2 viewings booked on this property where it's had nothing for weeks. So just by getting it on that new price point, but with that situation, it's not gone on as reduced. So I think there's different ways you can try and, get these price alignments done. Another one that Phil's agreed was one that we had on at 1.1. And it felt like it was the right kind of price when you looked at the data. They had 2 valuations for less than $1 million. And in discussing it with them, Phil has, got it basically to come on. It's basically, we've dropped it to offers over $1 million. And obviously that's now a price point. So there's lots of different ways you can try and get through to your clients. Ultimately, if they're not prepared to change the price at all and they're sat on there with really good marketing, so it's got a Twilight video, presenter-led video, really good photography, it's got a brochure, if it's got everything and they're not prepared to change the price for a really long period of time, you might really want to consider it coming off the market. Because how long are you waiting for? We've got a couple at the minute where they're not really keen to change the price, and they won't change agents. So we're taking it off and put it back on in the spring. Yeah, not in a rush. They're genuinely not in a rush. And I think as long as you're confident that they won't go anywhere else, that's something you can look at. But you've got to be confident they're not going anywhere else.
Can I just touch on something you said a minute ago, Dave, as well, which I think is really important in all of this, is about being authoritative and being the authority and being in control. Because if the client is in control, and we've all been there where, clients have taken over and tried to manage their own sale. But, it's important. And one thing I have learnt, certainly over the last 4 or 5 years, is you definitely got to take more control. You've got to be that authoritative figure in the living room in the beginning, and that has got to carry its weight all the way through. Because the amount of times now where my clients say to me, well, look, we'll go with your advice, you're the expert. And that is so powerful to know that, people trust you, but also equally when you're talking about data and you have that kind of, what's the best way to not authoritative state over the client, because I guess it is that, but also at the same time they trust your expertise, because it's no longer about your opinion and what you think the house is worth. You're articulating the data to them from the beginning, and then all you're doing is keeping them informed on what the market trends are. And in turn, it's not your valuation, it's not my valuation. The market doesn't agree with the price we've set for the house. So therefore, what we need to do is change the price of the house.
It goes back, JK, to what you said on the Val, doesn't it? And what you've put in your proposal massively. If you're...
Go on, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, you might not be sending a proposal. If you're just sending an email or a letter or whatever you're still sending, if it says, I think the house is worth X, then trying to get a price realignment 8 weeks down the line is very, very difficult to do in many cases. If your proposal has said the market data suggests that the right marketing price for this property based on XYZ is this, and as long as every week when you're speaking to them, you're keeping them in touch with what's going on, then normally a price change is easier. I realise sometimes it's impossible and it's just maybe the wrong client, but it does go back to what you said at the beginning.
Well, there's a couple of things. I think that being that authority, I always say to my clients, look, John, I'm not here to tell you what your house is worth. I see my job as your estate agent is to give you all the facts and stats so that you can make informed decisions. I'm not. It's not me telling you that your house is worth less than what we've got it on for, but clearly the market doesn't agree with us. So the market is currently saying it's X pounds per square foot. Based on your data, it tells us that we're a little bit off, John. So what do you want to do about it? If you want to stick and carry on, we'll support you. Or if I genuinely don't think that's the best course of action for you, I'll tell you. But, it's your house, it's your life. You've got to make decisions that are right for you. And then again, we've talked about this a lot recently, but it's all then about the why of the client, isn't it? What they're looking to do. When I'm looking at price realignments as well, or whether I'm going out to a property that's been on the market with another agent for quite some time, and it's on at a price that I don't agree with, or the market doesn't agree with, and we're looking at trying to realign the price in the valuation, one thing I do say is that an offers over strategy is best used when the property is perceived to be below market value. It means taking you outside your comfort zone a little bit, because we're going to drop the price below what we think it's worth, and we're going to stick an offers over tag on it. But on the flip side, what that's doing is all your potential buyers are seeing that, and they are looking at it and thinking, that looks like a really good price. But it's not just one person thinking that, it's probably 10 people thinking that. And if we can get lots more people through the door, we're more likely to generate competing offers, and you get the best price when your property is in competition. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. But, John, if I stick your house on the market at offers over $1 million, and we've been on at 1.15, if I stick your house on the market at offers over $1 million, with all the marketing that we've done, the exposure that we've given it, you agree, it looks great, it's in all the right areas. John, what does that tell you if you're not getting interest at $1 million? Well, it was never worth 1.15. So maybe you need to readdress your circumstances, or we need to take some time out. So it's just the way you put it forward. And the other thing, again, I always say to clients, have a plan B. So even in the valuation, even if all the data is telling you that you think this house is worth £900,000, there's always a chance that the market might play out the way we don't want it to. So right now, we think the market might be going into a bit of a purple patch. So we think that the autumn period might be good. Prices might end up the year on a high. Things are quite good, aren't they? Interest rates have dropped a little bit. We might get one more. There's a bit more buoyancy in the market. But we don't know that. So at the moment, I'm saying to clients, quite honestly, we don't know how the next few months are playing out. But all the data that Rightmove are giving us at the moment, and they have got everything, they can see the behaviours of the buyers that are out there, that we can see that estate agents are being inundated with inquiries. Yeah. So it's all positive. So that's the good thing. So it looks like it'll play out positively, but we can't control that. So you need to have a plan B. So what is your plan B? So last night, there was I think you got cut off before, Ian, but I went to evaluation last night. They've been on the market at 550. I'm telling them it's going to be 450. This is after 2 years, by the way. So they've had like 3 agents. It's ridiculous. And I'm saying it's like 450 to 475. That's what the data is telling us. But quite honestly, you need to have a plan B. What do your plans look like at 425? I'm not saying it's going to go that low. That would be a horrific worst case scenario for you that probably won't play out. But why not understand what your circumstances look like if you were to get 10%, 5% less than what you were hoping for in the first place? It might not be the end of the world because you're losing money, but so are the people that you're buying off. So go and get advice. Speak to your mortgage advisor. What does it look like? What do your plans look like if you were to get a terrible price for this property? can you still move? Can you still achieve what you want to achieve? Because I'm telling you, in 2 or 3 years' time, probably a few months' time, you're not going to be thinking about the 25 grand. You'll be in your new place, you're going to be in a different mindset, and you'll get it back in years to come, because that's what the market's all about. It's time in the market, not timing the market, as we say.
One of the clients, just on that, Dave, one of our clients the other day said something really interesting to me, which I thought was quite refreshing. And he said, my focus isn't to get every last penny. The focus is to move. And I thought that was quite refreshing.
Yeah.
In that, as you just said there, Dave, hit the nail on the head. You could wait for every last penny. But the thing is, I think what people do is they focus too much on the big number, especially if they're buying with a mortgage. Because what we need to talk about and what they need to think about is, rather than them taking 25k less, what does that look like to their monthly payments? So if they're taking 25k less, that then means that their £1,250 a month mortgage then becomes £1,300 a month on a mortgage. Over the next 25 years, are you not going to move for £50 a month? Or no, I am, Dave. So, maybe reframing it sometimes can work well. But I think we've added quite a few gems this week.
Yeah, just finally on that, and I know we've said it again before, but reframing people's thought process against what people were doing in COVID, because this is why we go back to 2020 on the data, because the trends were so different then.
Yeah.
0.1% base rate, no stamp duty, buying was so much easier, and there was an abundance of buyers out there and a lack of stock, and that's why house prices rose so quickly and sales were easy to come by. I was actually telling a client the other day, as a business owner, when we are making a plan for the year, we don't project listing 10 houses and selling 10 houses. We factor in fall-through rates of between 25 and 30%, because people's circumstances change. Some properties won't sell. We can't possibly do that. So we have to factor that in. But what happened in 2021 was that fall-through rates were really low. But when they did fall, they just resold straight away and somebody bought it. So everything went through. But we're back to normal now. There isn't as many buyers. And that light bulb moment, somebody buying your home at £700,000 would be paying a third of what they are paying now if it was 2021. So if you put that into pounds and pence, somebody might be paying £2,000 a month in 2021. They're probably going to be paying close to 4 at the moment. So it's like, right, yeah, I totally get it. And I mentioned it on the podcast the other week, but just to reiterate my view as well, you can get loads of information out there on the National Statistics website, Office of National Statistics websites, but you can learn and understand what the average salaries are in your areas that you cover and things like that. It's really useful to know, because if somebody's got a home that's likely to be sold to a next time buyer, say, who's moving from a 2-bed terrace up to a 4-bed detached or something like that, and the client wants £500,000 for it, but the average wage in the area for a professional couple is maybe a combined 70,000. Might not be able to afford it. So there's your target market, and that's what the average salary is in the area. So it doesn't necessarily have a direct relation to the value of their home, because it's all about trying to find the right buyer. But understanding that and articulating it to your client, once again, will show you as an authority and show that you know what you're talking about. And that's when you start commanding much higher fees than 1% and having to compete with all these people at 0.5s and 0.75s. Again, I think you mentioned it right at the start of the pod. If you're new to it and going into a new area, of course you might have to do a few deals. But once you get a bit of traction, you get some stuff on your website, people check you out, I honestly think that the fee thing goes away.
Cool. I think it seems like a good place to leave it for this week. We've got our mastermind coming up in 6 days.
Woohoo!
So we'll no doubt the next week's pod will be us dropping our thoughts from the pod. As always, lads, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Good to see you, lads.
Bye.